Good afternoon, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday takeover with RVonAV. And we're excited today. We're going to be talking about what we saw here in 2021 and what we're going to see going into 2022. I'm Rich Ventura, the Vice President of B2B here at Sony Electronics. So I want to welcome everybody. And we have just a fantastic panel today. And before I introduce the members of the panel here, I do want to remind everybody, please post any questions you may have, and we will try our best to get to them. On today's panel, we've got the one and only Gary Kay, who's the director of the Rave Agency, Gina Sancevera, who's a VP of Marketing and Corporate Communications at Atlas IED, and Tim Albright, the Chief Marketing Officer at CTI. I'm very excited of welcoming some great friends of mine and of the industry, and really leaders of our industry today's panel. So Gary, Gina, Tim, welcome to RVonAV. It's kind of weird probably for Gary and Tim. They're used to being on the other side asking me the questions. So it's kind of nice I get to ask all of you guys questions.
But I have to say, I love Tim's glasses. The glasses, Tim.
Oh, I know. Awesome. I know. You know, I wasn't going to pick on him on the glasses. I was going to focus on this jacket he's got. It's this masterpiece of a jacket.
It's holidays, right? And I got to the age where, and some of you will appreciate this, where I finally needed glasses. And I said, you know what, screw it. If I'm going to have glasses, they're going to be interesting. And so this is not a commercial, but this is for a company called Pair, and you can switch out the frames. So nice. Tonight I'll be wearing my Spider-Man one as I go to No Way Home. I think it is.
Well, you know, you got to support Sony then, because you know Spider-Man, Sony movies. So we're always excited to support our brand. Well, you know, real quick, and like I said, not that everybody doesn't already know the three of you. Maybe just take a quick couple seconds here to talk about who you are and what you do. I'm going to start with Gina down in the bottom left corner here.
Well, I mean, you gave me a great introduction. My name is Gina Sancevera. I am Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications at Atlas IED. And what I do is I make sure that my team, who is amazing and incredible, has the guidance necessary to be able to work through the brand evolution that we started about 3 years ago. So you might know Atlas IED as ceiling speakers and mic stands. And over the past 5 years or so, we've had a significant investment in engineering and executive staff, which has brought on this new resurgence of energy. And so it is my job to ensure that that energy is translated from the inside to the outside. So my team and I are working hard to maintain that kind of momentum for our brand.
Excellent. Well, it's definitely shown. It's amazing how much I've seen the transformation of your organization over the last few years. Mr. Albright.
So my name is Mr. Albright. My current role is Chief Marketing Officer for Converse Technologies out of St. Louis, Missouri. Integrator. We've got about 27 locations. Growing every year, year over year, about 35 years old. In addition to that, I also host a podcast called AV Week. And my job is, I'm a lot like Gina. I've got an incredible team, and they are really, really talented in what they do. And my job is to make sure that they've got the tools that they need as we go out into the marketplace and connect with the AV users, right? And these are folks that work for Fortune 500 companies. They work for higher education. They're in-house integrators. These are the folks that are on the guys and gals are on the front lines of the industry, taking your products, right, and taking Gina's products, and working with integrators as they work on the design and the install. But once those integrators leave, those folks are the ones who manage this on a daily basis, right? So our job is to connect with them, make sure that they have what they need from an education standpoint, from a news standpoint, and also obviously from an integrator standpoint.
Excellent. And Mr. K, I mean, everybody I think knows Gary, and we know him for multiple reasons. We always see Gary's team running around our events and shows. So, but I know Gary, you've also transformed your organization quite a bit this last year.
Yeah. So my name's Gary Kay. first off, I'm honored to be on your show. You've been on my show many times. I repay the favor. I'm coming to you live from hotel Wi-Fi, so we'll see how this does, because I always talk about how awesome it is to be connected to hardwire connection whenever I do these events. But yeah, I'm the founder of the Rave Agency, and we're kind of in 3 different silos. We have Rave Pubs, which is run by Steph Beckett and Sarah Abrams, and they focus on, we have 9 different newsletters, 2 different websites. In fact, we're getting ready to relaunch our entire website, our experience, which we've been working on, believe it or not, for 2 years. It's very, very different than what we have now. It's certainly different than anything else out there. And then we have the agency, which has helped companies like Sony to help put their brand out there, and also help keep up with market trends and things like that. And then we have Launch, which was what you were referring to. Launch is it was originally designed as a hybrid event platform. Our partner in design was Zoom. I don't know if you remember that many years ago, Rich. It's been almost 3 years since we launched it. And then right after we launched it, the pandemic happened. So it became a exclusively virtual event platform for almost 2 years now, 23 months. So hopefully it'll become a hybrid event platform again. We did our first hybrid. We did 3 hybrid events last fall, but we did our first big one a few weeks ago for the Alamo E4 event, which was truly hybrid, which was a lot of fun. In fact, Tim Albright, he was nice enough to participate in it. We had him as one of the MCs, and I think that's something we should talk about at some point in time today, because I think the future of the market is going to be, every event's going to be hybrid at some level.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think, as we talk through planning and we kind of discussed about this, we'll talk a lot about how we're approaching events and how events have changed, and how we look at the business and the market. So it's a good segue into a lot of the conversation. And before we hop to that, I kind of want to take a little bit of a step back and talk a little bit about this last year. This has been, I don't want to say craziness, but it's been a crazy year for all of us, both good and bad, right? I mean, we've seen the impact that market shortages have impacted all of us and how we've reacted to that. But we've also seen how the shift in our customers' buying habits and their needs have really impacted things as well. And, maybe Gina, I'll start with you. Being a manufacturer like Sony, you've had to do a lot of pivoting too, with all the stuff that we've had to deal with, whether it's been inventory and purchasing habits of our customers. I mean, looking back at this last year, what all did you guys do that's really changed your business?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. So we're lucky enough to be a privately held, family-owned company. And so what the banks hate, but what our ownership kind of prides itself on, is having inventory, having $18 million to $20 million worth of inventory plus on hand at any given time. And so while we have our team diligently ensuring that our inventory stays up, that components are secured and procured, we have really kind of put an emphasis on making sure that our integrators and our dealer partners have the supplies, have the pieces, parts, and products that they need in order to get their projects done. So there's a couple of things at play here, right? We were waiting and waiting and waiting for the quote unquote world to reopen and jobs to come back on, because jobs had not been canceled. They had just been postponed. And so early this year, jobs came back online, and then the supply chain shortage happened. And so it's caused a real cash flow issue within our industry and other industries, obviously, where our integrator partners aren't getting paid until the project is done. So they're working for basically nothing until they get that final piece, that final product, that final system commissioned. And we're trying to ensure that they get those final pieces and parts so that they can get paid, so that they can continue to the next job, and so that they're not waiting on anything. And that's a real struggle for any manufacturer, right? Just kind of looking at inventory, making sure that those pieces and parts are are in stock, that assembly is, working 24/7 to make sure that those pieces and parts are in place. And I mean, I don't know about you, Rich, but it's been a year of that kind of focus, of that kind of, okay, what do our integrators need? Let's get the feedback from the field. Let's make sure that we are not, leaving any stone unturned with regard to component shortages and suppliers, and kind of move forward in that vein. And if that means, and I hate to say, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go on.
All I was going to say is I hate to say it, but if that means that one of our product launches is going to be pushed off a few months because we're focusing on maintaining inventory, manufacturing, and supply of other products, of existing products that they need currently, then we will do that.
That's what I was going to kind of say. I think what I've noticed and we've experienced as well is your product launching and the plans you laid out last year are getting pushed out of it because you need to make sure you've got supply and availability and meeting your customer demand needs. And I think the entire industry is seeing it's not one manufacturer or another. It's the whole industry has been seeing this.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly
Tim,
right.
I mean, in your seat working at CTI, I'm sure, you're seeing manufacturers like Gina and what we're doing at Sony and other companies. I mean, you guys have like kind of a unique situation or position because you're seeing what all of us are doing. This last year has got to be just a very interesting challenge for all of you.
It is, and this is going to be something that warms the cockles of any manufacturer's heart, especially if you have any sort of market share. The level of which customers are tied to and married to their favorite brands is remarkable to the point where, as Gina said, we as an integrator, we have several projects that are missing one piece, right? One element. And you go to your clients and go, okay, you know what? This box here is not available, and it won't be available for about 6 months. However, we can get you, a tier 2 or tier 3 version of that. It'll functionally be the same. It won't have the Sony name on it. It won't have the Atlas name on it, but it will functionally be the same. And 9 times out of 10, customers are saying, you know what? No, I want the Sony. I want the Atlas. I want the whatever. And so you're sitting there going, okay, so how do you do this from a job completion standpoint? And sometimes, Sony and you guys have been very, very good about, you know what, this model isn't available, right? So especially when it comes to displays, but this one is, right? And so we can do some horse trading there. But I've been struck by the level of brand loyalty when it comes to not just colleges and universities, which have traditionally been the hallmarks of loyalty, but also in Fortune 500. Where it's like, you know what, this is what we need, this is what we standardize on, and we standardize on it for a reason, because of the quality, because of the service, because of the support. And so I think that folks like you guys are really kind of reaping the benefits of the last 5 to 10 years of really kind of proving to clients and customers, hey, we do stand behind what we say. And what's going to be interesting is coming out of this pandemic is those those manufacturers that don't have that market shares, how do they overcome that? Right? This is a prime opportunity for them to, hey, we have stock, or hey, we can get stuff, and overcoming this already ingrained customer loyalty to certain brands is going to be a challenge.
It's interesting when you talk on the loyalty side, and maybe Gina, I'll let her comment on this as well, is there's also a different type of loyalty, and that's the manufacturers to the integrators, and also the integrators back to us, right? And I think as we've seen the product shortages and the inventory shortages, those partners who have really reached out and embraced the manufacturers and worked really closely are the ones who are benefiting because of that loyalty and relationship as well. And I can speak on Sony's side. We've taken care of our partners, and we know our partners have taken care of us.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I think Tim's right on. We've spent the past, how many years in our industry really focusing on influencing that end user kind of decision making. And but But ultimately, we are committed to our channel, right? So our end users might be brand loyal, but we know that our integrator partners, because we protect them, will always kind of have a loyalty to us. So what we've decided to do during this time is make sure that they have the education and training that they need in order to understand, what swaps there are, what ability to use one product over the other there might be within projects. That education, that training is really important for them. I think that oftentimes what you hear from integrators, and Tim, maybe you can confirm this, is that the biggest barrier to entry for any manufacturer is the engineering department, right? Because that engineer knows, and we were talking about this the other day, and Gary kind of smiled because he had a big hand in this, but every integrator engineer knows that Extron, that Extron part number that they need to complete a project, and it's right off the top of their head, and there is no hurdle there, right? That is easy for them, and so they kind of just put it into every job. And so you want to make sure as a manufacturer that you kind of continue that you make sure that education is there, training is there, product announcements are clear, and you are not only focusing on the sales side of things, but also the design and engineering side of things. So first of all, kudos to Gary for getting that kind of Extron system in place and then allowing other manufacturers to jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, and I think maybe throwing to Gary, you hit a good point here, education and training, which I know is a big piece of what Gary's organization really helps manufacturers with.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big core part of our belief, is that we think that manufacturers that use education as a marketing tool will benefit from a long-term loyalty. And I think Tim brings up a really good point in that the loyalty has been helpful and problematic at the same time. And there's a great opportunity. Tim actually hinted at it. And for those of you who are manufacturers here watching this, there's a great opportunity out there for you to take advantage of these shortages and market your way into it's almost, the higher education market has a huge loyalty. You're right, Tim. But the door has now been cracked open for anyone to step in there and take a piece of that market share and that loyalty away from a brand that can't ship. And it's staggering to me how many of them have just done something as simple as, well, we have inventory, and they think that's good enough from a messaging standpoint to get that message across. Gina, you're absolutely right. You can't do that. You've got to call the engineer at the integrator, and you have to say, this part here is not available, as you know, and here's the difference in this other part, and here's why you should consider putting it in the system, not just now, but in the future as well. So you're not just like taking advantage of the opportunity, but you're using it as a chance to educate the engineer, and that's what it's going to take. And that works in design build firms. In the case of traditional integrators that aren't design build, then obviously there's an easier opportunity for you to take over some of that business, but they have to jump on that opportunity creatively.
No, totally. And I think I think we're seeing these last 12 months have actually emphasized what we have been talking as a group for the last so many years about the importance of education, the importance of working with the engineers, and don't forget the consultants too. The consultants are extremely important in what this industry is doing. And I look at what we've done and others. I mean, we've had a heavy emphasis and focus on those consultants because we know they're speccing in and designing a lot of projects as well. So education is such an important piece. I don't think we can de-emphasize it at all. We never will be able to. And every trade show we go to, every event we go to, education is always a core to it. So,
and you make a good point about the consultants really quickly, because it's one of the things that folks, if you've never really looked at a spec and had that experience, one of the things that consultants are responsible for are replacements, right? Are qualified replacements when it comes to, okay, I'm a consultant and I've spec'd out this product. Integrators will come back and say, okay, that are bidding on either A, we don't carry that, we don't think that's a right or right now it's not available. So educating those consultants on, okay, you know what, I'm the manufacturer, and I'm educating you, Mr. and Mrs. Consultant. If you're using or speccing our product on this, and if it comes to the time where it's not available, here are some qualified replacements, right? Here are some qualified what things that you can put in its place. So the job will still get done. It will still be our brand. You'll still look like a hero, and you know, the job will get done on time.
Oh, totally, totally. So I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of a shift talking about this last year. I almost kind of feel like 2021 was the year of mergers and acquisitions. It feels like every time we've turned around, there's been some, I mean, it's been some pretty big ones, right? At all levels, whether it's the integrator level, distribution level, manufacturer level, it doesn't really matter. You know, looking at that and not so much really per se calling out those mergers and acquisitions, what are you seeing from your seat, the ramifications of this for the industry as a whole? Both, I mean, a lot of it's good. There's some that are going to make challenges. I mean, so Gary, you know, from your seat, what are you thinking, or what are you seeing?
It's going to continue for two reasons. Number one, there's value in the sort of like the size of the organization having a lot more control over their destiny. And that's kind of obvious. You see that in large manufacturers and large integrators as well, having a substantial impact. And then there's also the financial side of the banking situation, for example. I mean, to get money and cash flow, it's become very difficult in the new economy the way it is. And there's some areas where it's easy, but most areas it's not easy. So that has created a situation where a lot of companies need that capital, right? They need that capital boost, and I mean, there's an interesting dichotomy here. I mean, our industry is not that old, right? I mean, if you think about it, yeah, I mean, you could argue it's really old because you have companies like Daylight who've been making screens for 100 years. But the most of the companies in our industry, let's think about this. Most of them are 20 to 40 years old. We're now at the level where all of those founders are at the age where they're ready to retire. So it's logical that we're seeing sort of this merger and acquisitions trend at this very moment, because those people don't have a succession plan if their kids weren't interested in the industry. So I think some of it is logical just because of timing, and then I think also a lot of it is to due to the fact of the power you get from being bigger right now in our industry. The bigger the company, the better they tend to do.
Okay. So Tim, I mean, what do you think? I mean, coming from, you know, I'm going to have you wear your hat working for CTI, but you also have your hat from just being in the industry as a, you know, with what you're doing with AV Week and what you're seeing. I mean, what all are you thinking about a lot of this M&A that's happening?
Well, Gary makes a really good point on the investment banking side, and you've also got, you know, private equity. The investment money that is pouring into the AV industry is really, really remarkable. And we can look back, honestly, even back beyond this year, the last 5 to 10 years, the mergers and acquisitions, and we can go back to when Cisco bought Tandberg, right, and the IT portion of AV really started to solidify. In the last month, you've got, you know, AVI SPL purchasing a pretty significant integration firm at SKC. You've got the Almo and the Exertis deal that went down just this last week. All of these are looking at two things. Number one, Gary's right about the second generation. Gina works for a great second generation company, right? John Ivey is, you know, his dad founded Atlas IAD. You've got what's happening at Crestron with Dan Feldstein taking over for his dad. However, there are some firms that the second and third generations just aren't into it, right, for whatever reason. And so, yeah, these founders are looking for an exit strategy, and the exit strategy right now is this private equity or investment banking money that is available. Those really smart bankers, which are smarter than me when it comes to money, are looking at the industry going, oh yeah, you know, your P&L, your EBITDA, you know, makes sense. Let's do this deal. And so they're giving these founders, or maybe the second generation, an exit strategy that maybe they didn't have 2 or 3 years ago, before, you know, the money really started pouring in.
So Gina, I mean, coming from our side of the world as manufacturers, there's a lot of excitement, right? There's a lot of really exciting things going on when we look at our channel and things going on, but also, we've also looked at manufacturers that are combining forces, not because of financial reasons, but maybe even more of technical reasons. Our products fit better together and it allows us to deliver more. So, I mean, what are you seeing, or what are you thinking coming from your seat?
So what I'm really excited about is that, my first Infocom was 2005. I know I must have been 12 years old, right? Thank you. But really, my first Infocom was 2005, and I walked into Infocom. I think it was Vegas, and I was like, oh, this is a nice trade show. I had come from the medical components industry. We had many large, very professional trade shows that we would go to, and everybody was wearing suits and ties, and it was an exceptionally professional event. And I walk on into Infocom, and people are wearing jeans and sneakers, and like it was a completely different world for me. And there were all these little 10 by 10 booths and little tabletops, and it was really a cultural shift for me. And now when you walk into Infocom or a different show, you're seeing that professionalism. You're seeing what that influx of money, the mergers and acquisitions, the kind of corporate feel. And yes, we still have that kind of casual, laid back attitude, but we are a much more grown up company than 15, 16 years ago, or industry rather, than 15, 16 years ago. We were an industry of, mom and pops where, you started out as roadies and you ended up kind of not being able to lift those cases anymore and going into integration. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. We started from very amazing, motivated, humble roots. And these mergers and acquisitions and the influx of money, as Gary and Tim said, have allowed us to kind of become a more professional, more put together, and more, I think, influential industry than we were even 15 years ago. So that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Okay. No,
I think we're going
definitely.
through a really exciting time.
We are, and I think Gary, maybe throwing a little bit back towards you again, is you're working with every aspect of it, right? You're working with the manufacturers, and you've got the distribution and the integrators and the end users. You're seeing it from every angle. I mean, anything else you want to add or comment on this?
Well, I think first off, Gina, you're absolutely right. Infocom 2005 was in Las Vegas. You have a good memory on that. And our industry has grown up. In fact, Gina might have been the only female on the show floor outside of the daylight booth in 2005. That's one example how our industry has grown up. But I think another thing that was sort of alluded to that could be thrown into this, because it's not just been mergers and acquisitions. The number of stories of brands collaborating with each other has gone through the roof in 2021. The number of stories we get on a weekly basis of Barco ClickShare collaboration community that includes Logitech and Poly and all the adapters, and then you have the Zoom certified, Teams certified, and then you have the Panopto certified and media sites. I mean, like, the number of collaborations is substantial, and I think part of it is due to kind of having a lot more time to figure out those kind of things, because some stuff didn't happen that they could have normally done in the marketing department. But the other part of it is guaranteeing compatibility for the very reason we talked about first up, which is when you have to substitute something, or it gives you an opportunity to get in the door where you weren't there before because you know that this product works with this product. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think companies that don't take advantage of that collaboration trend, and when I mean collaboration, I don't mean UCC. I mean collaboration as in actually working together, are being myopic. And I think they're going to suffer in the long run if they think they can do everything themselves. So I think that there needs to be a lot more partnerships, and that's benefiting our industry at every level.
I love that. That is absolutely true. I'm sorry, Rich.
No, Gina, please. No, you're good. Keep going.
I was just going to say, I think that's 100% true. And I think that, Gary, to your point, the more the industry grows up, the more they realize that those collaborations actually make us a stronger industry, make us more influential. And actually, you're seeing a lot of that collaboration with IT companies too, right? And security companies.
Yep.
And you're now bringing that whole building system together through these collaborative efforts.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. If you go back a few years ago, the conversation was about, for the manufacturers were solutions, and it wasn't solutions that they were per se making. It was solutions that they were pulling multiple partners together to create that value add. And I think it's driving innovation, right? And Tim, if we look at from the integrators' eyes, the more compatibility you have out there, that's really getting driven through all the stuff that's been going on these last few years. I think you're seeing your job becoming, I don't want to say, definitely not easier, but I think your job of delivering more to your customers, I think is increasing that ability.
Well, it is. I mean, before we answer your question, I want to clarify something. Lloyd, which is John Ivy's dad, Lloyd did not found Atlas IED. He founded MyTech, which is the overarching corporation in the AV space. Most people do know Atlas IED, which is kind of why I default there. What you have is this getting away of selling boxes and getting more towards solutions, and that sounds like 100% a cliche. But the reason reason it is because the reason cliches are so easy because there is a truth to them. We are 100% selling solutions. We are 100% selling, the opportunity to take a worry or take a pressure off of our clients. The fact that manufacturers are coming together and partnering, whether that's Teams and Zoom certified, which is, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing that. Absolutely. Because the client's already using it, right? And the fact that the manufacturers are going through the hoops and the process of getting them certified makes putting them into proposals and putting them in designs 100% easier than integrators having to do it themselves. Or you're coming together and you're saying, this piece of equipment works with this piece of equipment because these two companies got together. Again, thank you so much. It helps the engineers. It helps in the sales process. It helps in the marketing process go, okay, here is a classroom solution. Here is a hybrid classroom solution. Here is a, getting your folks back to work solution that incorporates all these different disparate manufacturers that have come together. They work together. We know they work together because guess what? They got together on the back end and made sure they worked together. And then our engineers are smart enough to go, okay, here's this group of folks that work together. Here's this group of folks that work together. And you come together and you deliver a solution. I think that right there is kudos on you guys for being smart enough to get together and say, yes, let's work together.
No, definitely. And I think what's been great, and I'm gonna speak this from the hat I always get to do, is none of the partners, none of our customers, none of our integrators, resellers are shy in telling us what you're looking for. And we always use that term. We always talk about the voice of the customer. I think even more so these last 12 to 18 months, that voice of the customer, the voice of the partner, the voice of the market has carried, I don't want to say carried more weight, but it's just been stronger. And you've seen how all the manufacturers have responded, how the integrators have responded to that, whether it's inventory, it's product availability, it's the product itself, it's solutions, it's integration, it's mergers and acquisitions. All that stuff I think has played into all this, what we've seen this last year. Taking a little bit of a different shift here and just talking about this last year, let's talk a bit about events. This has been a really unique year for events. And when I talk about events, I don't just talk about in person. I think we've all learned so many different ways now to interact with our customers. We've got in-person events. You have the 100% virtual events way on the opposite side. And then you've got these hybrids in the middle where you've got a good blend of in-person and you've got a good blend of online and virtual. And I think we're all kind of tired of the 100% virtual aspect of the world, but you've got to have that good mixture. And what have you seen from pivoting? I mean, Gary, I know you guys at Rave have really pivoted quite a bit. Those who don't know what launch is have been kind of hiding under a rock. You've really made that a big part of what we've all been doing in the industry. I mean, what are you seeing? Because events are a big part of what your business does.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't intending to be in the event business. We just kind of fell into it because of what happened in 2020 with the pandemic. We had created a platform with Zoom originally that was going to create hybrid events, which is something that everybody had talked about, but no one had actually done. And the difference between a hybrid event and a virtual event is you actually have people in person at an event, and you have separate set of people that are online, and the experience is different. You can't give the same experience online to the people in person, vice versa. And the other part of hybrid is making sure that the people who are in person can communicate with the people online and vice versa. And so we had this plan to do that. And of course, the pandemic hit and we had to flip to virtual. And believe it or not, what's amazing about that is we did over 70 events in 2021. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's I don't know, there is another company that has more experience with virtual events. Now, I don't want to be in virtual events all the time either. I think they get a bad rap just because of course you'd rather be in person. I mean, let's be honest. We would much rather, we'd rather have wine drinking parties with each other in person than on virtual. But when you have no choice, you have no choice. But the truth of the matter is, as events go back and are in person again, here's the data. You can say what you want, but the data proves is what you have to pay attention to. The data shows that you can introduce products virtually, and you can explain how products work virtually in the context of a system. So you can be very successful launching products through webinars or virtual events or whatever you want to call them. The piece that you can't be successful is the quote networking piece where you're connecting people together. So that piece has to be solved. So I think going forward, where you're going to see the value in virtual or hybrid events is where you're actually connecting humans together. And so therefore, we're going to see an explosion of events. I think Tim put it well in our pre-meeting that we're going to see not only a lot of, we're going to see trade shows come back at some point in time, but we're going to see a lot of regional events or road shows or whatever you want to call them. And all of those will be hybrid.
Okay. All right. So Gina, I mean, you're running your marketing organization, and you've got to look at how you get your message out there. And as Gary was saying, you can utilize these virtual and hybrid events to launch products and everything like that. You're an audio company though, right? So as you're looking at your plans for next year, how do you see events playing into what you're going to be doing from your strategies?
So I think Gary's right. You're going to see an explosion of events, and I'll just say I miss that human connection, right? I get a lot of energy from seeing human beings, and I might make up for the 2 years of not hugging people with hugging 2 years worth of people in a very short amount of time next year. So I'm really, really excited about coming back to in-person events. And that being said, we are putting a lot of our marketing budget towards in-person and hybrid events, and a very small portion towards virtual only events. And I'll tell you why. We've really switched our focus in our marketing organization from standard lead generation to demand generation. And the leads that we capture at virtual events are just that. They're leads. They're email addresses, phone numbers, contact information of people who might or might not have interacted with our quote unquote booth at a virtual event. And we hand them over to the salespeople who might or might not do something with them. Our salespeople always do something with them. They're amazing. And hope that one or two of them convert. And that is not the way that we want to run our marketing organization. It's not the way that sales and marketing have aligned their processes. So when it comes to kind of focusing on more of a demand generation activities, those are really more human focused. And being an audio company and a communications company, we really find that the in-person and the hybrid, to Gary's point, just kind of being able to do outreach to an even larger audience, that's where we really shine. And that's where we're able to incite some excitement, some interest in more of our products. This year, we had to kind of scramble to figure out how we were going to showcase our brand new product platform, Atmosphere. And we did a live streamed event that Tim was a part of. And thank you, Tim, again, for making that a huge success for us. But then we were saying, holy mackerel, how are we going to demo this? And so we decided all that software was going on AWS instances, and we were going to create this virtual demo experience. And while it was fun and it was great and it filled that void, it wasn't perfect by any means. And so, yes, we're absolutely all in for events. In fact, we're probably going to spend more money on small regional and micro regional events this year than ever before. We're probably going to pull back on larger global and national events. So that's kind of our strategy moving forward.
Okay.
That's
So,
an
Tim,
interesting. I think you should take some notes about that, because that's interesting insight. Because what's happened, what Gina's basically said to you, is that this gave her the chance to go back and re-engineer the ROI of events and come up with an actual formula that works, which, by the way, prior to the pandemic, an ROI did not actually exist on events. I worked for a company that spent millions of dollars on an event, and I can tell you, you couldn't come up with a formula that everyone would agree on. You can't just say, well, the amount of money we spent divided by the number of leads we got in the booth was our ROI. It's way bigger than that, because there's branding, there's awareness, there's the element of the networking of the relationships, all those things that couldn't be measured. So now Gina's actually got a formula, and I'd love for her to share that with the rest of the world.
As long as she shares it with me and none of my competitors, I think we're good.
Yeah, there you go.
So, Tim, I mean, I hate to say, you're kind of in the middle, right? You work for an integrator, so you've got to look at those big events that are out there, the event Infocoms of the world, and how do you guys attend those to help make sure you're educating your people and you're driving things, but also you do your own events, whether it's a hybrid or virtual and things like that. I mean, what are you seeing, how events have really transformed this, and what you're seeing going into next year?
So I'll start with the most recent first, and Gary was nice enough to have me join the hybrid with Almo in Dallas. That was a really cool experience, because Megan Dutta and I, as well as Alicia Headley, came on and we got a chance to really connect with folks in a virtual stand. We had Melody Craigmile from Almo on, and a couple of different other folks from the Almo group, and we got to interact with the folks that were remote, right? So if you were online, you were able to ask questions. You would say, hey, can you go to this booth or that booth and find out more about this? Alicia Henley did kind of a man on the street. We did they streamed Gary's keynote with a hologrammed in person from LA. So it was a kind of a best of both worlds type. Yes, you could feel like as much, without getting out of your seat and getting on a plane, you were in person, but you're also able to experience and kind of get you get the CTS credits as well. So that was a really cool experience. From the CTI standpoint, we had a booth at Infocom for the first time, and again, not to be silly, but our goal is to get more leads, is to get more clients. And we kind of felt as an organization and as a marketing department that this year was going to be a heavier concentration of AV users, both tech managers and in-house integrators from the Fortune 500, as well as education. And it bore out, and it bore out because of something Avixa has done strategically over the last 10 years. They have actively gone out after that group. They have actively gone out after that audience, to the point where, as an integrator, as somebody who's looking for that client base, it makes sense for us to go there, not just to see the new greatest technology, which certainly our engineers had a field day. They were able to talk to whoever, about whatever, and pick their brain and go, okay, try to break it. But from the sales standpoint, yes, there are sales folks in our sales team certainly went by the booth, but they also were at our booth connecting with customers. And that to me was incredibly valuable, but it also gave me an education from the back end of what it meant to put on an event, what it meant to go to a trade show as an exhibitor. Because it's something I hadn't I hadn't done before, right? Both Gary and Gina and you, Rich, you guys have all done that. I hadn't done that. And then should we take that and the hybrid with the Alamo E4, and you look ahead to 22, right? We're a week before Christmas, we're 2 weeks out before CES. I have COVID has taught me one thing, and it's not to try to predict the future, right? I do think that in 22 it will be the year of the roadshow, right? A number of folks are going out in local smaller events. COVID or not, they're going to be safer, right? Because we can spread apart. They're smaller events, but there is that need and that kind of that desire from an industry to get together and to get together on scale, which is why you saw a large contingent of those end users, of those AV users at InfoComm, right? That was a huge component of who came out to InfoComm. I think the same thing will happen in June, right? So I have no idea what's going to happen at CES in 2 weeks. I have no idea what's going to happen in NAB or any show in between. I do know, though, that folks will get together in some way, shape, or form, whether that's online or in person, probably a combination of both.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would agree on your comment that COVID taught us that we can't predict the future. But I think what we can predict is Gina's going to be given a lot of hugs in 2022. So we know that somehow, some way.
Guaranteed.
But I do agree. The industry is constantly looking for how are we going to get knowledge? How are we going to get engagement? How are we going to get networking? How are we going to get our product in front of everybody? All of those things. And it's going to be interesting to see what CES brings and DSE after that, and NAB and InfoComm and all these other things. So kind of switching up towards the end here. And by the way, you guys have just been awesome, and I appreciate the time you spent with us throughout this. And the conversation's been fantastic. One of the things I kind of want to throw a little bit out is just a little bit on technology trends. And Gary talked a little bit about collaboration and how important collaboration products were and stuff like that. But if we look at where the industry is going, not so much where we've been, but where we're going, what are those technology trends that you're starting to see? And it may or may not even be something that your organization's focused on, but what are we starting to see? And Gina, I'm going to start with you. What maybe are some of those trends that you're starting to see? And it could be application based, not even just a hardware or software based, but what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
So I was hoping you wouldn't pick me first, because I have a somewhat limited view, very focused view on this, I should say.
Yep.
So I really think that a lot of the collaboration is going to be continuing. And I think that, as I mentioned before, it's going to continue within IT and security. I mean, so I was at an event about a month ago or so, and one of the keynotes, her topic was about IT and AV convergence and how we should all be prepared. And I'm pretty sure we talked about this 10 years ago, right? I don't think we're talking about convergence anymore. What, Tim?
I'd say 20 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. I was actually pretty surprised that they had booked a topic like that. But so I think that what's going to happen is this collaboration between industries is going to continue. And that means that we're all going to have to speak the same language. So standardization is going to happen. I think the decades of proprietary communication systems is absolutely gone. And I think that once we start seeing the opportunities, not only just reveal themselves, but reveal themselves in mass, we are going to start talking to security, IT, and other organization or other industries rather, and figure out what is the best mode of communication between them, and that's going to start winning out. And we're talking about, digital IP and all of that stuff, and we're getting there, right? But there's so much analog left that it's time for an upgrade. So that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Okay. So Gary, what are you seeing?
That's a big question. It depends on what part of the market you're talking about. I'll give you some general trends that are kind of obvious, I think, but should definitely be mentioned. There is no such thing as putting audio here, audio here, audio here, audio here. It's going to be video too. I think anyone that's in the audio business will also be making video stuff or collaborating with companies that make video stuff. And you'll be putting in audio and video together, even in places that you thought was only for audio. We're going to see a lot more video incorporation. I think that digital transformation is going to accelerate digital signage. Digital signage is going to have a huge, it's going to come out of this as a big growth point where you're going to see that not just in retail and transportation, but even in corporate. We're going to see digital signage even driving classrooms. You'll see digital signage players that become the players for classroom connectivity, for displays. I think you're going to see we're going to have a bump where we can't get anything for a while. So from about middle to end of February through the beginning of July, there will be no product literally to get, with the exception of a few manufacturers and some specific SKUs. We're going to see some big shortages. And then I also see that although we are all hopeful that LED will come down in price, it's going to stay up for a year, but then it'll come down pretty rapidly. I think by the end of this decade, it'll be 90+% of the display technology. And obviously Sony's in a good position for that. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I don't know which trends you want me specifically to focus on, but I want to make sure Tim has a chance to cover some, because he and I are pretty much in alignment about the trends for 2022, I think.
Well, so I get one thing I'll just throw to maybe add to your thing, Gary, about the shortages. I mean, that's obviously a concern we all have, and it goes back to Tim's earlier comments. It's that loyalty working all ways, right? The customer with the integrator, the customer with the manufacturer and the integrators. I think that's all going to be really critical for any bumps that we see when it comes to supply chain. So, Tim, what kind of trends are you seeing that for this coming year?
Rainbow and roses. That's all I see. Just rainbows. And
Wrong year.
Oh, dang it. You mean 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean, here's the thing. The supply chain issue is going to be, this is right. We thought that 2020 was a crap year. We thought that 21 was another rocky road. 22 will be kind of when all of that comes home to roost. Not just the supply chain, but the chip shortages and this, that, and the other. And it will be bumpy, right? It will be a struggle. But it will also, unveil some creativity that not just integrators will have to have, but also manufacturers will have to have. And quite frankly, the AV users and the folks that are managing these spaces, they'll have to get creative, and they'll have to kind of go back to their executive teams and go, okay, you know what, you may love this brand, and that's great. Here's if you want to do X, Y, and Z, this is what it's going to take. But the second half of this year, we'll start seeing a light, and then out of this will come a couple different things. They're already talking about putting a chip manufacturing plant in New Mexico. Understand what I just said. There is not currently a chip manufacturing plant that I'm aware of in the United States, and they're talking about building one today. What that means is in 3 years, we might be producing chips in the US, which would be fantastic, but it's in 3 years, right? So that means in 24 to 25 to 26, we might get there. But I use that story to illustrate something. This pain that we're feeling is really, really kind of accelerating the creativity and the ingenuity that this industry has, right? Whether that is moving manufacturing plants from one country to another, or kind of spreading it out and expanding it, right? We make this one box in this one plant in this one country. Well, in 6 months or a year, that one country is going to be 3 countries, because if anything happens from a from a political standpoint, from a health standpoint, from any other standpoint, you can still get product. And so that I think that by the end of 22, it's really going to highlight, some of the really smart people in the room and what they're able to do with this adversity.
No, totally. And I think it goes back to that concern a lot of people have with a single source, right? And we're definitely going to see that. I mean, who would have thought 15 years ago that we would see production happening in Vietnam, in Thailand, in Malaysia? I mean, everything was about, well, production moving to China, right? And now you're seeing all these other markets. I mean, there's parts of Africa now they're talking about, and parts of South America. I think true globalization of production is going to be really, really key in these coming years. So closing out, and as we always do, I always like to ask people about their favorite technology. And normally we talked about what got you through COVID, but we haven't gotten through COVID fully yet. But more, I'd like to look to each of you is what is your favorite piece of technology you got to play with, or favorite item? We've heard everything from air fryers to electric bikes to regular bikes to headphones, Microsoft Teams, you name it. And I think I know definitely with Gary, he loves to play with every type of technology he can get his hands on. It'd be very interesting to hear what your guys' favorite technology was. So, Mr. Albright, we'll start with you.
I'll do two extremes. One is headphones, and I'll be the first to admit that I have a problem. I have a small problem with headphones. I've never met a pair I didn't like. So I have several. I am a big fan of my in-ears right now. I do love the wireless in-ears. It's 100% for exercising, and when I go out on the road, the type that gives you the ambient feedback is very helpful. Because typically when I'm running in the morning, it's dark and I run with a headlight. So I like to hear the cars as they're coming in my neighborhood. But the other side of the technology is I have gone analog and old school, and I have fallen back in love with a charcoal grill. And I cannot tell you why. I've had a smoker. I've had gas grills forever. And my son, actually, my 13-year-old wanted a charcoal grill. We got one, and holy crap, I didn't touch my stupid gas grill the entire summer, because we did nothing but charcoal, and it was fantastic.
I'm the same way. I bought a Masterbuilt, one of the Gravity lump coal smokers, the smoker, grill, and sear. And as Gary knows, I mean, I've used that thing almost every single weekend. So, Gina, we'll go to you.
Honestly, Rich, after this year, I have no technology that I love. I'm so sick of technology. I'm sick of staring at screens. I am sick of cameras. I am sick of headphones. I'm sick of earbuds. I am sick of all of that stuff. I have notifications turned off on everything. I think my favorite thing in the entire world right now is just my dog, right? And of course my son. But really, it's the interaction that we've missed is probably my favorite thing right now. And I'm sick of bells and whistles and all of that stuff. So I'm sorry to be the party pooper here. But yeah, technology, I'm done with it for the next couple of months. I mean, except for the stuff that I have to use.
You know what? We have had technology overload this last year. And the more we've worked from home, the more we've used tech. So I get it. Honestly,
Rich, I mean, listen, I've been so wearing a lot of pain in my upper body, staring at screens and arms out at unnatural angles, even with a sit stand, it doesn't super help. And I got into yoga this year hardcore because it was one of those things that could help me. So maybe yoga is my technology, but it was definitely an outlet that I needed because of technology.
No, totally. I
have a recommendation for Gina, but you're going to have to use your technology for this recommendation.
Okay.
You should download the app Headspace, which is a meditation app. It's awesome. And it walks you through 10-minute exercises every day. And I think you'll really like it because I think it'll I think you'll really bond and you'll appreciate the fact that that technology is driving that content to you. And not only that, the guy has a great voice. Andy Pudom, the guy who does, he's just got this great voice. But I'll answer your question, Rich. I'll answer one in the industry, and I'll answer one consumer one. How's that? In the industry, perfect. The product, and maybe I'll get in trouble for this, and they're not a client, but I love the product. And that is Aver's VB130, the video bar. I travel with that. It has a 4K camera inside of it. It's got a mic and speaker array, but also it has a light ring built into it, and it's portable. And I just think but it has this neat technology called audio fencing. So when you step out of the video frame, the audio cuts off. So if someone's in the background, and there's a lot of noise, I've used it at the AVI SPL show or in the AVI system shows, and you can't hear it, cuts off the background noise. So I really think that's a cool little product. And then as far as a consumer product, I've fallen in love with the Apple Watch. I think it's a great consumer product. I think that it's worth buying for the health benefits. Forget about the notifications and the fact that you can call on it. I do love the fact you can stream music on it without actually, it goes through data. Like you don't have to download your music or podcast, you can stream. But the health benefits, like it tells your heart rate, as Tim knows, it'll tell you, your incline and decline and your pace and cadence. But it'll also measure, like, I'm sure Tim's run into this guy. Did I just have a heart attack? And of course, we straight use that feature on the Apple Watch to figure out.
I have never thought I had a heart attack yet. I'm not that old. Good Lord, Kay.
but I mean, you start freaking out, and it's a pulse ox. It even takes your oxygen level in your bloodstream, which, I mean, the product is just amazing to me as a consumer product. And that's the tech that I like the most. But I get what Gina's saying.
So real quick, funny story for everybody. I'm at a conference in Western Canada, and Gary and I knew each other, but really never really talk that much. And Gary's speaking, and Gary spends the first 5-10 minutes. I think he just was at Apple or something. And he talked nonstop about this Apple Watch that was coming out. Nonstop. And I'm looking at him going, I don't know, Gary. I don't know what you're talking about. And it was hilarious. And this has got to be 15 years ago? I mean, it was quite a long time ago, Gary. And you were talking nonstop about
it. Was 10 years ago. It was a couple years before it came out. Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for taking time. I really appreciate your friendship and partnership and leadership in the industry. All three of you. It's just been great having you on here.
Thank you.
I do want to just close out and reminding everybody, we are going to be coming back next year with more of these RVonAVs. We have Tech Tuesdays, all those things. Please let us know if there's topics you'd like to hear more about. As Tim and Gina and Gary also talked about, Sony does have road shows coming up. In fact, in the month of January, we will be in Tampa, Atlanta, and Dallas. And then right behind that in February in Los Angeles. So definitely Sony is on the road coming out to see all of you. And, I appreciate this last year with everybody and wish everybody a happy holiday and have a fantastic rest of the year. And let's get into rainbows and roses, as Tim said, for next year. So appreciate everybody and have a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.